Well, yeah, certainly. I mean, it was our fault. We made a mistake. The spotter said it was clear. It wasn't clear, and, I didn't want to tear my car up, tear his car up either. I respect everybody, and I demand respect. And, I apologized to the guy when he came over the car, explained to him what happened. And then he took it to another level when he started calling me an idiot and whatever else. And I don't appreciate that. I'm not going to take it. I told him how I felt. I called him out. He didn't show. And so, I'm good with it if he's good with it, but I'm not going to be disrespected by no means.
Yeah, I guess I had a dinner date at Applebee's last night that I didn't find out until it was too late. It's a shame. Love their riblets and boneless wings, but...
All right, folks, welcome back to Meet Me at Applebee's, your number one unrefined motorsports podcast. It's Brian here with Rob and Ashley. We've got Atlanta to talk about and a lot of other stupid shit, I'm sure. So, folks, how are we doing this week?
Pretty good. Very excited to hear Truelove recount her visit to Atlanta Motor Speedway. I know that was probably a pretty special one for you. I'm excited to tell you about White Mountain Motorsports Part 2. That place fucking rips. But how you doing, Truelove? You sunburnt? You soaking wet? What's going on? Whoa. Oh.
And it just goes on like that for
how long do they keep that fucking thing on for?
I don't know about Saturday night, because it was like midnight, but I guess until the car battery juice runs out.
Yeah.
Blaney was very funny on Door Bumper Clear today talking about that.
Yeah, it's like you just moved to Dawsonville and you don't know about the siren. You think the tornadoes are coming?
I don't think Dawsonville gets new residents.
Yeah, that's probably a good point.
Yeah, I thought that was pretty generous of Blaney to say that on the show.
Yeah.
But since we are talking about a Chase Elliott win, I'm going to have a nip here to get through all the gloating. 99 grapes. Here it comes. I have a menthol Zen in, too, so this is going to be disgusting.
Jesus.
It's tasty. Yeah, so let's see here. Guess we'll getting Lime Rock out of the way first, since there's probably more to talk about with all the Atlanta stuff.
There's not a goddamn thing to talk about when it comes to Lime Rock.
No, there really isn't. I mean, I had the race on, but, I mean, it was pretty boring. I mean, I was pulling for Jordan Taylor. He was in the top 5 most of the day, but there was a late race wreck where he got dumped and pushed back to, like, 20th. Corey Heim, listen, technically he only led 99 out of 100 laps, but he led 100 laps. There was some technicality bullshit on one of the restarts where Lane Riggs was credited with the lap. But yeah, it was just Corey Heim's show. I don't think, I was definitely hoping for more of a battle with Taylor and a couple other of the ringers that run the race, but no, it didn't happen. Heim was just gone pretty much the whole time. And I mean, there were a couple wrecks, but yeah, it just was a very boring race. I mean, it's a cool facility. First time NASCAR's ran in Connecticut in like 50 years.
So I was wrong. This is actually the first National Series race they've ever hosted. Which is pretty crazy. Like Big
Lime
Three.
Rock, but I mean, I guess they ran at Stafford up until the 70s or whatever, something like that.
Yeah, and Cup raced at Thompson a couple times, but this is. Lime Rock specifically, this is the first time ever, which I was surprised to hear that. I thought they had before.
I was the same way. I thought at least the Busch Series or something ran there at one point, but I mean, it'd be cool if like Xfinity came back there next year or whatever they're going to be called next year. But
the Busch Series, we can go back to calling it that. Hopefully,
nothing hasn't been announced yet. Hopefully that happens, but who knows?
Yeah, I woke up on Saturday morning. And it was Saturday, right? Having a Cup race on a Saturday night throws me off so bad.
It threw me off terribly.
My weekend the schedule was fucked. And then there was a modified race on Sunday, which we'll get into later. So, yeah, everything was reversed this weekend.
Yeah.
But I woke up on Saturday morning and took a look at the clouds, and it was raining. And I was like, oh, shit, well, I guess I made the right call deciding not to go to Lime Rock. And then I realized, oh, yeah, it's a fucking road course. It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
And I felt pretty serious FOMO for a couple of hours until the race came on, and then I felt a little better about my decision to not drive down there and spend $90 on a ticket. Like Brian said, fucking cool facility. I would like to see this, but and the town really went all out for it. They had like a hauler parade and all that on the night before, and I guess the ARCA race was okay. A shout out to Thomas Annunziata for picking up the win over Alan Day. I guess that was a good show, but who would know? I didn't watch it.
Yep, same.
Yeah, all of this happened while I was either getting ready to leave for the Cup race or on the road to the Cup race. So I kind of wish they ran all this on Sunday when there was nothing going on, but oh well.
Yeah, and another thing about our notes here, which none of you listeners can see, but I actually put Lime Rock first on here because I thought that's the order it was supposed to go in. But the Xfinity race was actually the night before.
Yeah. Yeah, I was a little confused about that when I first saw the schedule. I was like, huh, oh, wait. Oh, yeah, I forgot Lime Rock's Saturday. So, Friday night, going back, the Xfinity Series.
Sorry about that.
This race was, unfortunately, delayed quite a bit by not even so much rain but lightning. There was tons of lightning and thunder, and we all know the rules with that, so they got pushed back, and I think they started briefly, and then there was a 2-hour delay, and then first lap back on the track, the big one happened and took out I don't know how many fucking cars. Austin Hill, who yeah, my poor Sheldon. Sheldon, especially after sweet Sheldon, especially after Austin Hill started off with fuel pickup issues, and he was taken out of contention real fast, and I was like, well, fuck, Sheldon might actually have a chance, and he almost made it through the big one, and then the very last second got taken out by Sammy Smith, so that was a disappointment.
Perfect.
It was fine. Once, kind of like the Cup race, once everything kind of shook out, it was decent racing, and Nick Sanchez got his first career Xfinity victory.
12:30 in the morning.
Yeah, it was a late one, for sure.
It's very rare that I can watch a full night of the Flow Racing Dirt Vision Roulette, and then once that's done, be able to flip over and just catch the end of the fucking Xfinity race.
Yeah, that was one thing I did flip over during the delay and watched the high limit race. Although apparently I didn't really watch any of it, but I guess the CW rain delay coverage was pretty good. Like, they were just interviewing pretty much everybody, and there was a fun moment between Jesse Love and Connor Zilic, which that kind of went viral a little bit, and
the bro code
it's cool
thing?
to see that stuff. What's that?
The bro code thing?
Yeah. I mean, a lot of those guys don't get a ton of TV or interview time, so anytime you can give drivers more opportunities to get on TV, that's always good, and it's good for CW for sticking with the coverage. So
yeah, glad to hear that.
That was good.
I guess Braves preseason baseball is long over, so they don't have to switch over to that.
Yeah. And then, so I don't know what the hell happened during the race, but apparently Daniel Dye flipped off Austin Hill, the big bully that he is.
He hates that.
Yeah, went over and had a little talking with Daniel, and I forget, was Daniel the one that got knocked out by Austin Hill a couple years ago? Who was that?
That was Myatt Snyder.
That's right, Myatt Snyder. Yeah, okay.
Austin said, "Flip me off again, motherfucker. I'll beat your little ass," and then walked away.
Yeah.
But it's funny because Austin Hill flipped off SVG last year while SVG was doing his burnout by him at that one race. So.
Well, if you remember, SVG is a lot taller than Daniel Dye is.
Yeah, SVG is definitely, I'm not fucking with any Australians, and he's a big dude, so I would say that'd be a pretty interesting battle if it were to ever happen.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, that's a fight I would love to see. A Kiwi versus some big old corn-fed fucking farm truck like Austin Hill. That'd be pretty awesome to witness. I think we've even said this on the show before, but I'm hoping that comes up someday.
Yeah.
But the chances of them really racing each other are pretty slim. It seems. So.
Well, Austin will be in the Cup race this weekend, but
shit.
Again,
right.
I doubt they'll be seeing much of each other.
Probably not. But yeah, speaking of the Cup race, so Truelove, you went down. Tell us about your travel tale.
Yeah, very, very excited about this.
Okay. Well,
you had some traffic, didn't you?
Whew, did we? I thought I wasn't going to make it to the race. It threw me off all day. Just like, I'm so used to going to a Cup race and like waking up early and hitting the road early and it being like an all day thing. And like just sitting around the house, rotting all day, waiting to leave I didn't enjoy that part.
I was gonna say, why the hell didn't you guys get up there earlier and
because it was 8,000 degrees.
Yeah. I guess that's fair.
Yeah.
So you're telling me you didn't get your picture with the AEW title like I asked?
No, so we had really bad wreck traffic for like an hour, and then
had your own big one.
Yeah, we got there like an hour later than we wanted to. So we went to the fan zone, and like we could only do a quick lap. Like, I saw the seals for like half a second.
That was my next question.
Good.
They looked miserable. It was like the point of their show where like just little kids come up and take pictures with them, and those seals look very over it.
You needed a cigarette. Yeah.
They did. Yeah. But by the we walked by that wrestling display, and the belt was already gone. They had already taken it inside the track. So it was just a bunch of people standing around doing nothing.
She tried, Brian. See?
Yeah, there was like a virtual selfie thing you could take with a couple of the wrestlers, but you know,
yeah, I didn't want to do that either. So I spotted a.
No
I don't know
thanks.
who any of those people are.
Still, you should have done it for me, just because it would have
That's fair.
pacified me. That's
Well,
fine.
the issue is that I saw a Cracker Barrel display in the background, and I started heading towards it until I realized that there was one of the ticket gates right next to it, and the line was hundreds and hundreds of people long. I was like, what the fuck? I was like, well, must be getting too close to time to go in, so we better get in line. So let's go to a different gate. Maybe a different gate will be shorter. Went to the next gate, even longer, probably 1,000 people in that line.
Yeah.
I was like, okay, let's go to this one at the very far end. Surely it'll be empty. And same deal, just hundreds of people in line. And it turns out all the gates were closed and shut down because it was a lightning hold.
Oh.
So they just left us all standing in the parking lot.
No kidding.
Yeah. So
Well, that
didn't have
sucks.
time to do much.
That really sucks.
We finally got in, and I had went to the restroom. When I came out, my brother was standing there waiting for me. And as soon as it was me and my brother that went, by the way, me and Cody. And as soon as I get up to him, he says, turn around, there's Jamie and McMurray. And I turn around, and here comes Jamie McMurray and Parker Kligerman, and they're like surrounded by security, but you can tell they're walking up to go to the booth because Jamie McMurray was in his like full TV makeup, and I tell you what, that man was beautiful in person. Holy shit. It was like the clouds had parted and the sun shined down on him and the angels were singing. It's like the closest I'll ever be to like Brad Pitt was Jamie McMurray walking by me in TV makeup. That was a beautiful, beautiful man.
Congratulations, you just named the episode right now.
And then Parker was behind him, and he's just, kind of a goofy goober, but he smiled at us, so. But yeah, so after that, we went in for driver intros, and we got some, empty seats that were real close to the stage just to watch that. And I don't know how much they showed on TV or if y'all watched the pre-race or not, but I really enjoyed the way they did the driver intros for the bracket. They had the wrestling belt was out there on stage, and each bracket pair they brought out together to kind of like a wrestling promo.
I saw McDowell and Allmendinger had a little thing.
Yeah, it looked legit too. Like they really committed to the bit.
Well, there were a couple wrestlers there. I'm sure they got a little bit of advice, but I definitely enjoyed a lot of the you could tell it was in jest, but there was a lot of shit talking amongst the drivers leading up to the race, which was good.
Yeah, I know we'll talk about it later, but when Noah and Briscoe came out together, Briscoe brought his kid, and Noah stole his child and left the stage. So. That was great.
That's awesome.
Yeah, after that, we went and found some other empty seats, because my brother had got us cheap seats with his, student discount.
Yeah.
But they were way down in turn 4 where all the drunk college kids are, so.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But it was very, very hard to find any empty seats on the front stretch.
It
That is the
fucking packed on TV.
that is the closest I have ever seen Atlanta sold out. So
That's cool.
yeah. Yeah, we found some empty seats. I could tell that no one on that row belonged on that row. They were all kind of doing the same thing we were doing.
Yeah, the
old
nervous
guys,
look around.
Yeah. The old guys sitting next to us, one of them complimented my shirt that I had made for the race. And then
which was?
It just said Atlanta Motor Speedway on it with some old iron-on letters that I made the day before. So
Somebody's got to make the point.
somebody's got to. And he was like, "Did you make that shirt in protest of the name?" I was like, "Yes, sir." He's like, "What's the deal with that?" And then I had to explain to him the whole money laundering thing. He's like, "Oh yeah, that makes sense."
Sadly, it does.
Yeah. Let's see.
Well, while you're looking at your notes, Brian, I didn't actually have much of a chance to watch the pre-race. Did you watch that at all?
No, see, I that's when I was at dinner with my parents, and then I went to go see my buddies play. So I missed like all the pre-race, and I missed pretty much all of stage one. I was checking my phone and stuff. But
Perfect.
yeah, I
so
missed
none of
all
us
it.
watched the TNT pre-race. Awesome.
Yeah, no.
Truelove, back to you.
The only other thing I'll say about the pre-race is whoever did the prayer they just talked about politics for like half the prayer, and the crowd was screaming, and the lady in front of me when he said, "Let's, praise the president," she put her hand up in there and was swaying back and forth. I was like, oh,
We don't need to be yelling during a prayer or the national anthem, folks.
So it was more of the wrestling carried on earlier. But luckily, as soon as we sat down in the grandstands, the clouds from the storms in the area kind of rolled in, and so there was cloud coverage the whole time, which was perfect when it's 90-something degrees. And,
Yep. So it actually worked out for y'all having a race in the middle of fucking June.
It did
Down in
work
Georgia.
out for once.
That's good.
But yeah, after that, the race started. Some friends of mine actually ended up coming up the stairs in that random section that we were at. They were also looking for empty seats, so our buddies Clinton and his wife Ray sat with us, and Clinton said he listens to the show, so
Nice.
thanks, Clinton.
Yes, thank you, sir.
Yeah, they're a fun time. Clinton definitely likes to party, so.
Oh, me too. What are the odds?
Would really get along well. There was a little bit of a rain delay. I guess it was mostly in turn 2 because it never rained hard enough for us to have to leave the grandstands. So I can't remember how long that lasted.
It was a few minutes, but it wasn't too bad.
Yeah.
Very Daytona-esque rain delay without the 7-hour delay afterwards.
Stage 1, Logano led most of that. I thought it was going to be the Penske show all day.
Well, you didn't get to see that.
Bell got loose, took out Larson and Blaney.
That was Bubba's first of 17 incidents he was in.
Yeah, that was a rough night for a lot of folks, but particularly Bubba Wallace.
Yeah.
Yeah, that Bell wreck was interesting because he kind of lost it on his own. And then...
There were a few incidents where people lost it on their own, and they all happened right there in turn 4.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Dylan kind of turned Larson a little bit, and he saved it, but then the rest of the pack just piled in, and that was when I cursed into a pillow next to my wife. We now have 2 televisions in the living room for situations such as these, so she's not 100% subjected to me being a DARF, and I had to mask my anger because it was my entire fantasy lineup, and like most of America, the entirety of our bracket challenges. So that was it.
Well, the wreck in stage 2 is where my bracket and fantasy lineup went to shit.
Yeah.
I will say that wreck to see in person was so surreal because I think at that point, I don't know, but just, we're watching him go down the backstretch, and all of a sudden it's just like a wadded up mess of nothing. I didn't think I was going to see any cars come out of turn 4 in front of us. It was pretty wild to see happen in real time.
Excuse me, the first wreck was my fantasy lineup exclusively. The second was my bracket challenge, so I got to die twice on Saturday night.
Yeah, but the crowd really loved seeing Logano drive by with his that weird hobbling motion he was doing. And then they cheered again when they towed Hamlin by. After those tow trucks got done over there, there was a long line of them coming down pit road, like back to back to back. It was like Hamlin, LaJoy, I want to say Hocevar, Cindric, just a parade of tow trucks.
Not unlike our video of the week, which we'll talk about a little bit later.
Hamlin's car in person, though, was great. That Hawaiian paint scheme
it's
really
always
sticks out.
It was always pretty on the Roush cars, and looks good on Hamlin, too.
Yeah, and then like Hamlin said on his podcast, that after that wreck happened, it like allowed space to make moves, and that's when the race like really, really fucking got good. Like,
it was pretty standard. Well, I won't say that because standard plate racing fare these days is running around at 30% throttle, but we never saw that from the drop of the flag. It was pretty hammered down the entire time, and like you said though, once the pack was gone, there was only a pass tour amount of cars on the racetrack. That's when business really picked up.
Yeah.
Yeah. One thing I will say is fuck David Starr. Whoever is fucking.
He looked like he was out there driving the fucking simulator at the Hall of Fame doing the hot laps,
I swear to God, on lap 1, that man was already, a full half a lap behind the pack. Like, he literally got lapped 18 times in that race, and I watched every single one of them. And every time the pack came up on him, he acted like this was his first time ever driving.
Which it isn't.
In the way. No. You couldn't predict what he was going to do. And then when about half of the pack would get past him, he would start blocking people in the back of the pack on purpose. I was like, this motherfucker. And he eventually wrecked too on his own, but
yeah, that was pretty comical.
Yeah. But yeah, those last 25 laps were so electric. That place under the lights is incredible. Yeah. The energy had ramped up so fucking much.
We had the hometown boy up in the top 5.
Yeah. I mean, I think with how many laps to go was it? I think with like 10 laps to go, he was 8th. So at that point, he wasn't really on my radar, even though all night long I had watched him go from like 8th to leading. Like, you could make moves so easily on this. Like, there's, slicing and dicing and...
Yeah, I mean, Denny brought that up on his podcast where basically, once a bunch of the cars were gone, you had room to move around and line up runs and... there was more air and whatnot, and yeah, definitely you could tell that, guys were able to do stuff they were not able to do with the full pack. So that was really cool to watch. And even Stenhouse was mired back a couple laps down after he got into the wall and had to replace the toe link, and he finally got up back on the lead lap, and then he was up there and making all sorts of crazy moves.
Those moves he made to go from 7th to where did he end up? 2nd, 3rd? He ended up in 4th, I'm sorry, right?
Yeah, he's in the top 5, but...
Yeah, he was up to the lead at one point, and that was unfucking believable.
He was making me nervous, that's for sure.
Yeah, that's the general reaction to Ricky Stenhouse anytime he's behind the wheel of a race car.
Yep.
Yeah, but, yeah, it was... The whole energy of that place, like... Oh, man, I wish I could describe it properly or, bottle it up to, share with everyone, but... When Chase when he, on the final lap, we had been standing up for a few laps, but when he got the lead going down the backstretch, I knew that race was his because he was so good in 3 and 4 all day. I was like, well, once he's in 3 and 4, it's over. And the whole last lap, me and my brother are jumping up and down and screaming and losing our fucking shit, and the whole place is doing the same thing, and it's like, for a Chase Elliott fan, like I've seen Chase win at Atlanta before, and the first time I saw him get his first, hometown win, that was special too. But there was just something different about this one, like under the lights, breaking that, kind of a winless streak, even though he won Bowman Gray, but.
Doesn't count.
Doesn't count, yeah.
It counts for me.
Listen, I know. Listen, Mikey Waltrip won the '96 Winston. That still didn't fucking count.
That's true.
So it's same deal.
Well, still win. Anyways, yeah, like I don't know, like throughout the whole race, anytime Chase goes to the lead, that place loses its shit. But watching him win, man. And it's such a unique experience too. Like no other fan base in NASCAR will ever get that experience. You can't go to Richmond and Hamlin wins and that place erupts. Like he gets booed at his home track. Like there's.
Yes, he does. Yeah.
Yeah. So many other drivers have, moved to Concord and, you can't, 30 drivers can't claim Charlotte as their home track and have the entire stadium get behind them. So
no, not at all.
It's a really just magical, badass experience.
Yeah.
I would say it's probably comparable to Suarez winning in Mexico. In a sense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's true. Yeah. But.
Yeah, on television, it was, like you said, it was electric at home, too. I was obviously pulling for Brad Keselowski, though. I don't think there was anything that really could have been done there. I mean, you're a sitting duck when you're in the lead at one of these races, and for Chase to have Alex Bowman behind him, like, no matter how it shook out, Bowman was going to get chased by him, and then they would have settled it on their own. So it sucked for me to see that, because Brad definitely kind of showed everybody why he is revered as sort of a king of plate racing at the end of that race.
He just didn't have help. If Buescher was there, I feel like it would have been a different outcome. But
it didn't work
Buescher
out,
got shuffled back to later, lower in the top 10, and just Keselowski didn't have any help. There was no other Fords. Well, trying to think, Zane Smith was up there, but even he wasn't close enough to help. So
Zane had a shot for a second, but that kind of fell apart for him. Which anybody who wasn't the top three at the end, obviously it kind of fell apart. But I don't think it doesn't matter who's up front. Chase was just fast enough, and to have a car behind you to help out, I can't imagine what Brad Keselowski could have done to have kept that from happening.
Yeah, it was an arguably a great pass. Not quite as good as Ross's pass on Byron at the 600, but it was still a great one. I got to give him that.
Shout out to Kyle Larson for getting the top 20 out of the deal, even though there was like fucking 6 cars on the track at the end of that. So got to holler at the boy real quick. And Reese was.
What are these shout outs we're doing right now? Anyways, Chase did a badass burnout. The fireworks show that Atlanta puts on is insane.
It looked pretty wicked.
Yeah, to have that as a backdrop was cool. And then, Chase got out and for the first time in his career went out into the crowd and was high-fiving people. So
yeah,
and then
he was acting a little more human than normal. Plus, he was on TNT. To jump ahead a tiny bit, TNT did a really great job. It was very reminiscent of the Amazon post race, with, I would say, the upgrade of Corey LaJoie getting dumped for Parker Kligerman. I'd much rather, give me Parker all day. And Jay McMurray's fine. I mean, he's pretty well polished, and I would say it's comparable to him and Carl, or Corey and Carl. I wish they interviewed a few more drivers, but they stayed on for a while. They were on TV till after midnight.
On True TV, yeah.
Yeah. I just kept mine on TNT, and it stayed on. I don't know if it somehow switched with up. Yeah, but it was on TNT the whole time for me.
No kidding. That's cool. Also, quick shout out to Carson Hocevar. He put on a show coming through the field like 3 or 4 times. He ended up in 10th. And then Cody Ware getting 13th out of the deal.
And BJ got 16th.
Did he really?
Yeah, oh yeah.
Awesome. I haven't scrolled down that far yet. But and also Connor Zilich, who we'll talk about in a little bit here, getting 11th. That's his best finish in a Cup car.
Yeah. So
but, yeah, it was enjoyable. I don't want to see plate races all the time. And I guess the only negative I'll take out of this is NASCAR tends to really lean into when there's really positive feedback for something they put together. And I know there's a lot of talk about tracks like, I don't know, Kansas or Chicagoland or wherever the fuck else getting reconfigured into something like this. Really hope that doesn't happen. I don't think we need any more plate races, but I think what would be more advantageous is to figure out how to make Talladega and Daytona work like what we saw at Atlanta, because, I mean, there's no question this is the best restrictor plate, super speedway racing, whatever you want to call it. This is the best version of this we've seen in a very long time.
Yeah, 100%.
One other thing is the paint scheme that Chase ran. I always dread this paint scheme every year because this is his 9th year running it, and every single year that paint scheme is cursed. Like, he wrecks or runs like absolute dog shit every time he's ever run it. So to see that paint scheme finally get a win was nice, and to have that girl there that designed the car and her whole family was...
Yeah, her reaction was pretty funny. It's pretty cool! Well, before we move on and talk about how good TNT was, you want to ring the siren one more time?
Let me find that YouTube clip.
Okay. Please stand by. There it is.
And then it just goes on forever.
Yeah, it's a 3-hour YouTube video.
I did find a damp koozie on the way out in the parking lot. That was like a event koozie that I didn't have to spend $10 on. So
That's
thanks
cool.
to whoever dropped that. So I didn't have to spend money on something that said Echo Park. We passed a storage facility on the way home that looked exactly like all the Echo Park branding. That, like, puke acid green.
Yeah, just the most generic Arial font in the world. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. It's great. 10 out of 10. Loved it. I think everyone should put Atlanta Night Race on their must-see list.
Yeah, I definitely want to go back next year. I was supposed to go to February, but the new dog kind of screwed that up, and I wasn't going to go to the June one. But yeah, I definitely want to go back next year for sure to one of them.
Yeah, but like I said, from home, the TNT coverage was pretty good for cable.
Yeah.
I know we were all kind of waxing poetic about what we hoped TNT could do last week. And I would say they actually delivered as best they could. Given, again, there was a full post-race show. The commercials were well placed. It's the same booth, so it works just the same way. And they did a great job covering the race.
Yeah, I mean, it really just felt, obviously the on-screen stuff was different, and they still did a bunch of the commercial, like the picture-in-picture commercials, which is good. And yeah, I mean, it's just good. I mean, we're in the point where Amazon was great, but you don't have to, I have no issue with TNT or NBC as far as their coverage. It's going to be solid. So
my only complaint is that during qualifying, the guys in the booth looked like they were about to sell you solar panels with those cheap-ass polos they had on. Did y'all see that shit?
No, I didn't see any of that.
Like they're about to knock on my door and piss me off. So I'm glad they put them in suits for the race. But yeah, that's the only complaint I have. But good job, TNT. And I think a lot of people forgot that they had True TV, but all of us have seen live PD before, so we know it exists on our televisions. Yeah. And it's cool that they have that ability to put a show on, but I guess it sounds like that wasn't even necessary because TNT stayed on the air. I didn't realize that. I switched over.
Yeah.
So.
But yeah, the next up, the big bracket challenge started this week, and obviously there are no, perfect brackets left. Obviously, not one person
literally
picked
zero
all of them right. I know Rob and I each got 7 of the 16 pairings right, and Ashley only got 2.
I got 2. When I filled out my bracket, I was like, okay, I'm not going to go off emotion, because if I go off emotion, it'll be like Chase and Blaney and Bubba in the end. I was like, I'm just going to go through and do it strictly based on stats, and whatever happens, happens. So I went off stats, and Atlanta happened, but Chase still ended up being my winner at the end based off stats. So I still got my winner left in there.
Oh, I had Christopher Bell. That's way over for me.
I can't even remember who I picked. I know I picked Ty Dillon over Denny. That's the one good one I had, but I don't know.
Yeah.
Whatever. That's fine.
Yeah. Maybe don't put Atlanta in the bracket challenge next year, or put it further along. Not the first race.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think the biggest surprise on mine, or the long shot, was. Actually, I don't know. Now that I'm scrolling through this, I don't really think there is one, to be honest with you. The obvious ones kind of made it through. I guess Carson Hocevar up against Blaney at Atlanta. That was kind of a long shot, and that one actually went through.
Yeah.
That's it.
Mentioned all the shit talking and stuff that happened. I would say this is probably all of our favorite shit talking moment. To his face, Noah Gragson told Chase Briscoe he's super excited for the off season coming up. He's going to Turkey to get that hairline fixed. And I missed this. I don't know if it was on Twitter or Reddit or whatever.
It was on Reddit, yeah.
On Reddit, Chase responded, "Can't afford the trip now that I'm knocked out of the in-season tournament." Yeah, that's Noah pretty much saying what we all have in our heads looking at Chase, unfortunately.
Yeah, an unfortunate hairline.
They also were auctioning off those skeleton gloves that they wore in
Yes,
this
I
race.
saw that. Yep.
Yeah, and Gregson bought Briscoe's skeleton gloves in the auction. He's going to make Briscoe sign them, and Briscoe said, "I knew you were going to do that, so I drove up the price on purpose." Nice little friendly competition.
Yeah, that's so good. So yeah, there's a little bit of news, somewhat big news coming out the last few days. First, I would say the biggest news note, Daniel Suarez is no longer driving for Trackhouse after this season. I would say we all probably saw this coming, especially after Pitbull pulled out of the ownership. And you know, aside from his win last year, you know, Suarez has really not had the greatest performance, and not to mention his wife shit-talking the team in the Netflix series. That probably didn't help anything.
No, not at all. Yeah.
I would say, I would say it's a foregone conclusion that Connor Zilic is going to be in that car next year.
Yeah, I can't imagine who else there. I mean, he already drives for fucking Trackhouse, and I think he got a better finish in the Atlanta race than anybody else, so I don't know who else you'd pick.
I mean, it's very early in silly season, and like there's not many spots open. You know, granted, there's some other lawsuit stuff and charters being moved around that will come into play, I'm sure. But yeah, I mean, I can't imagine anybody else taking that seat aside from Zilic. Where that leaves Suarez, who knows? I think the big speculation, or at least the hope from a lot of fans and other people, is that he drives the 88 full-time in Xfinity for JRM. While I can see that going well, I also feel like, I mean, that's almost an insult to somebody who's got 9 years in the Cup Series and a handful of wins under his belt to drop back like that. But, you know,
I mean, Cole Custer won a race too, and you know the only reason he's in his seat is because his dad is who he is. But with all due respect to Cole Custer, he's a great race car driver. But you know, there's a lot of weird similarities between Suarez and Custer. You know, both tearing it up in the Xfinity Series and continuing to do so anytime they drive it, and then in Cup, especially with the next gen, they just can't figure it out for whatever reason. Obviously, Custer's the bigger offender here, but. I don't think it's that bad. Again, like you look at Corey LaJoie and him talking shit about dropping to a lower series, and now he's had to eat his crow and kind of do that with Spire. I think that this would save Daniel a little bit if he could go and actually get into a winning truck immediately. That shows that people still have confidence in him, and he just won in a fucking JRM Xfinity car. Yeah. So it's not the biggest.
Doesn't he have a Xfinity championship too?
Suarez, he's already a champion. Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. It would just be a little weird, but I mean, yeah, he obviously would do well in it. So I guess we'll see what happens there.
I think I'd rather do that than go fucking Rick Ware or something.
Yeah, which won't exist anymore.
Yes. The other big news piece that came out was I don't even know the guy's fucking name. But,
TJ Pushure. I know I just butchered that last name.
Yeah, he's somebody who he used to be with Spire, I think.
Yeah, he got bought out of the ownership. He was the founder, but he got bought out of the ownership group. At some point in the past couple years, has ponied up and is going to buy Rick Ware Racing for apparently close to $100 million, which is fucking insane.
Well, you have to realize, though, I mean, $100 million, if that includes, I mean, the two charters, they're selling for $40 million each, and then the team and everything else, like, it's a big number, but it does kind of make sense.
That's the biggest fucking number Cody Ware's ever been involved in right there, buddy.
Yeah, but
he's locked in for 26, so.
Yeah, I mean, Cody Ware will still be in the car next year, and then also, I think the lease ends in 2027, but I don't know what that's going to mean for the RFK third car, because people have theorized that maybe this will be Brad's time to step out of the car, which if he unfortunately continues to perform where he's been at, I can see that happening. And Brad, he's had a great career, and he's very team-oriented and business-oriented, and, I could see him retiring next year if there's no other option to keep a third car, but, I guess we'll just see how that all plays out.
There's a couple of linchpins in the whole silly season thing, because like you said, right now there's not a lot going on. Everyone's kind of locked in for next year, but we don't know how this 2311 lawsuit's going to go, and then in tandem with that, we don't know how the Rick Ware lawsuit's going to go, and now they've been sold, and that kind of throws a wrench in the entire thing. And like drivers like Tyler Reddick and Bubba Wallace have clauses in their contracts where they need to have a charter, and if they don't have a charter, they can bounce. And I'm sure that's pretty common in the Cup Series. And if this whole thing falls apart on either side of the issue, and front row, let's not forget to mention them in this whole thing. It could get pretty wild pretty quickly, I think. And none of us are legal experts, but just it seems like everything's fine for now, and it will be until it absolutely is not. And we don't know when that's going to happen just yet.
Yeah.
Cody Ware on the hot seat right now. He's the only guy who's got a fucking job.
Oh, it's so funny. Speaking of Cody Ware, so I saw a tweet that was mentioned about a lot more commercials with drivers in them this year, and how good that is for the sport, which it is. But I saw there was an Arby's commercial that's they're sponsoring Cody Ware, and Cody Ware, the only line in the entire commercial, he just says "what?" because the spotter's like telling him there's a cheesesteak at the finish line or something. So
I will say that Arby's ad that was airing with said cheesesteak, that had me going on Saturday night. That thing looked mighty delicious. So hopefully our buddy Brady will get some coupons out of whatever deal he gets with them and ship them my way.
Supposed to be doing a huge activation at Chicago this weekend, so I'll be sure to check that out.
Climbing up on Meat Mountain.
Gross.
I didn't make up the slogan. That's not me.
Other news notes, RFK President Steve Newmark is leaving the team to become the athletic director at University of North Carolina, Chapel Hill. This means nothing to me. I'm sure RFK will find somebody to replace him.
Yeah, I mean, Steve has been absolutely integral in the development of the team and kind of bringing Roush back to almost the A tier, I guess, in the Cup Series. So it's definitely, not to put my tinfoil hat on, but the timing of this is certainly a little suspicious with the Rick Ware purchase and how those two teams work together. And again, I don't think there's any sort of Chevy alliance with this guy because he got essentially kicked out of Spire. But I'm curious to see how this does affect the relationship with Roush, and maybe Steve is kind of looking at what's up the road and deciding that maybe it's time to get out of racing or find something else. I don't know, maybe UNC wrote him a big-ass check. They have more money than God at these universities, so who knows? I don't want to read into it too much, but it was kind of interesting to see these two news stories drop together, and if you follow the business even a little bit, it is kind of an interesting parallel, and I guess we'll see what happes.
Yep. Disgraced spotter Tad Boyd was
I wouldn't say that.
was hired by Joe Gibbs to spot for Christopher Bell. And going back to the tournament shit talking, I don't know if you guys caught it, and I think it was on Twitter that Ricky was like, I sent over my old spotter to spy on you. So I thought that was a funny little quip. Carson Hocevar, he had a layover in Chicago. I forget what appearance or something he was doing, but he had a layover in Chicago, and he went and visited Chicagoland Speedway and took some cool videos and stuff of that, and just gave a tour of what the facility looks like now. And coat of paint, clean up the track a little bit. It's ready to go. So, I'm all just waiting for the announcement. And
it's been 5 years, right?
It's not like 2020 was the last time they raced.
They still have a staff there, so it's not like
they still have staff. they still did events and stuff there, and you know, like we mentioned, they've been hiring people, and you know, it's pretty clear that something's going to happen there next year. So, you know, as soon as tickets go on sale, I'll be getting them for that. I'm 100% going, so hopefully that happens.
Yep.
And then sad news, Larry McClure, one of the co-owners of the legendary Morgan McClure team, passed away this past week. I think he was in his 70s, I want to say. Of
81.
Some sort. 81, okay, so yeah. That team, you know, a legendary team, Ernie Irvan, Sterling Marlin, Daytona 500 winners, and handful of other drivers were in that seat. The legendary car, the Kodak car, I mean, that's one of the most recognizable cars of the 90s. So
Yeah, the first one to utilize that exhaust setup that made it scream like an Indy car.
Mm-hmm. So I think that wraps up news and notes. So now we have a listener question. Friend of the show, former guest, Mike from First 7-Inch Club, sent this in a few weeks ago and has been bitching about me and that we haven't answered it yet.
Yeah, we don't check the email very often. Sorry about that,
No.
bud.
So, you know, he was watching the Earnhardt doc a few weeks ago, and he posted this in our Discord and figured it'd be a good question for the show. Hey, all, if they made an Earnhardt doc into a movie, who would you cast in the notable roles? I only watched the first part, so here's what I got. Dale Earnhardt, Michael Cera. No, I mean I can kind of see where he's coming from with it, but no.
What? George Michael Bluth as Dale Earnhardt?
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
great.
no.
Maybe
Evan's friend?
Maybe if you were casting Christopher Bell, then that would be a better option. But
Yeah, no.
Jack Welch?
Let's see, DW, he has Will Ferrell. He says they need to use the AI computer de-aging ship, but it would work. I would say this is his A-plus pick, 100%
He's
home
already
run.
done Ricky Bobby. I think that's enough NASCAR movies
I know,
for Will Ferrell.
but it would work. He could pull it off very well.
Yeah, I can see that.
Richard Childress, Paul Walter Hauser.
I had to Google this person.
Yeah, I don't know who the fuck that is.
I think Brian just dropped it off, too.
Yeah, he's so angry about this one. I'm going to Google Paul. What's his name? Paul Walter?
Paul Walter Hauser. Apparently he's an actor and wrestler, and
wrestler.
he's a big boy.
Okay. He's been in a bunch of movies I haven't seen.
Yeah.
I didn't even know there was a new Naked Gun, so that's something. I don't know. I guess I'm not familiar enough with the body of work to make a decision on that one. But for
I'm sure
Richard,
Brian has something to say whenever he comes back.
Yes, he does.
Since it's
But
wrestling related.
while Brian is wrestling his cat off of his desk right now, Mike does have Richard Petty being cast as Timothy Chalamet, which
It also made me laugh. Fucking old Willy Wonka looking ass.
Yep,
I
I'm
don't know.
back. What
is.
was the last one I
We
said?
were talking about the actor wrestler guy that he picked that
who
me
the
and Rob
fuck
had never heard of.
Paul Walker Hauser
Oh,
is.
Paul, yeah. So he was in notably he was in I, Tonya as one of the henchmen. He was in that Atlanta bombing movie. He was in Cobra Kai. He's been in a bunch of stuff. He's very good, but yeah, he does a lot of wrestling shit now. He's a strange guy. And then Richard Petty, he picked Timothy Chalamet, which I don't know how I feel about that one, but
Nope.
Yeah.
All these
I'll start
were
off.
the worst picks imaginable.
DW was a good one. Walter Hauser could pull it off, but the other two are just bad choices. My picks, I've got. And these are mainly going off looks, probably not so much acting ability. Earnhardt, I'm going with Joe Manganiello, the guy who was in True Blood, the big wolf guy. I think he could pull off. He's got a big nose like Dale did. He's got good facial hair. He could pull off the mustache. That's my choice.
Should we just all do our Earnhardt picks at once and then go to the next
Yeah,
one?
let's do that. So, yeah.
So I'll just say I don't watch movies. I don't watch TV shows unless it's reality TV. So I really struggle. I had to Google.
Did you pick one of the
who are
1,000-pound
actors?
sisters?
I'm kind of the same way. Like, this was a little bit of a struggle for me. So yeah.
I big time struggled. So some of these might not even make sense. But for Earnhardt, I picked Tom Hardy.
Okay. I went a completely different direction in this, mostly for the meltdown. I picked Bubba Wallace to play Dale Earnhardt in this film.
I thought about. I was like, let's do a cast that'll piss it like
Yeah, keep it in the family, but make Facebook just melt to the fucking floor. And so Bubba Wallace
There
Oh,
would probably be bombings at movie theaters.
Yeah. So yeah, definitely Bubba Wallace for Dale Earnhardt.
Good choice.
Thank you.
Better than Michael Cera.
Yeah.
All right, so that's Dale. DW, I am picking Tim Baltz. He was on the Righteous Gemstones. He was Judy's husband.
Interesting.
I think he could pull off a young DW. He kind of looks like him a little bit.
That's funny because I picked Walton Goggins from Righteous Gemstones to play DW because he can be serious and really goofy.
That's pretty good.
Much like DW.
That's fair. That's a fair
real
one.
pick. I picked Bob Odenkirk for Michael Waltrip. Just cuz.
I don't know
Well, this is DW we're picking, not Michael Waltrip.
I've picked Bob Odenkirk for Darryl Waltrip. Or if you want to flip it around, we could do Giancarlo Esposito, also from the Breaking Bad universe.
Okay.
I'm not taking this very seriously, to be clear.
I've got for Richard Childress, Shane Gillis. I think he could pull it off, and he's a racing guy. So yeah, I think he could do it.
That's funny. I just went with Jeffrey Dean Morgan because I don't know any actors.
Okay. I've gone with
I feel
Roseanne
like he could be
Barr.
an asshole.
Roseanne Barr to play Richard Childress, folks.
That's a good
I
one.
love that.
And this is another one that I think will be hated. For Richard Petty, I'm going with Adam Brody from the OC. I feel like he looks like a young Petty. Put a mustache on him and a big hat and sunglasses, and he could pull it off.
Okay.
That's fair.
Who do you got?
I couldn't decide between Matthew McConaughey or Norman Reedus.
Okay. I'm going to stick on the diversity train, and I've picked Danny Trejo to play Richard Petty.
He could probably pull off Marty Robbins pretty good.
Yeah, he might be able to.
Yeah.
But I've got a blockbuster cast, an all-star cast over here.
I think Rob wins.
Yeah.
I'm watching that one.
People outside of their comfort zone, particularly Bubba playing Dale.
All right, so there you go, Mike. Now you can shut the fuck up.
Those are the only actors I know. So
Yeah.
it's either
All right,
that or
What are the sisters'
Pauly
names on 1,000 Pound Sisters?
Dave. Tammy and Amy.
Tammy and Amy. They got a last name?
Slayton.
Slayton, of
They
course.
could play Kelly and Teresa.
Perfect. See, you know actors.
All right,
Like the
with that,
situation in there.
Yeah.
Play Junior.
with that, looks like it's time to dive in the septic tank.
It sure is, and this weekend I actually did manage to make it to a racetrack. Like I said, my schedule racing-wise was completely fucked in my brain just because the Cup race was on Saturday night. I wasn't planning on going to White Mountain Motorsports Park up in Woodstock, New Hampshire at all. It was supposed to be a Saturday show, and I just wasn't going to be able to do that. But because of the forecast, they moved the entire thing to Sunday, and I happened to have a free day. No real racing to watch, nothing to do. My wife's out of town, out of North Carolina with the family and on a business trip, so I said fuck it. I dropped her off at the airport and hauled my ass on up to New Hampshire. Almost got really lost on the way up there. I didn't realize that my phone charging cable had stopped working until I got the low battery alert about 45 minutes outside of the racetrack in the middle of the White Mountains, and I said, oh fuck. So I pulled over to a rest stop and looked up the nearest Walmart, and I pulled into this motherfucker with 3% battery left. Otherwise, I would have been, A, not on the show, or B, if I did, it would be from a payphone at a KOA campground in the White Mountains. But once we got that out of the way, I made it to the racetrack. And let me tell you, folks, White Mountain is a beautiful facility. Appropriately named because it is in the middle of the fucking White Mountains, which Truelove, you've been up there before. I didn't realize that.
I camped there for like a week one time, like 20 years ago, but it was absolutely beautiful up there. So.
Yeah. For reference for NASCAR fans, it's probably an hour north of Loudon. Maybe an hour north, just because of the drive. As the crow flies, it's not that far away, and you actually pass a lot of the same stuff on the way to the racetrack. But it's in the middle of this beautiful valley. There's literally a fucking like pond or a lake in the parking lot with this huge hill right next to it, and you're just it's kind of nestled in this beautiful mountain range. Sick little quarter mile or something like that. I think it's maybe a little longer than that. Maybe I think it might be a little longer than a quarter mile because Star is a quarter, and this was definitely bigger. But high banked, super racy little joint, run by the same folks that do Thunder Road up in Barrie, Vermont. I think it's about an hour and change from there. But I rolled up there. Again, no experience at this racetrack other than watching it on Flow when the modified tour went there during COVID. They took a couple years off, but they finally returned to the schedule. And they had a packed house, which was awesome to see. Absolutely perfect weather. It was probably 80 degrees, 82, something like that, with clouds kind of moving in and out. So kind of what Truelove described. Like as soon as you get a little bit hot and humid, the clouds would move in and kind of cool you off. They got a pretty good late model division there with a lot of the American Canadian Tour guys popping in. Gabe Brown was in that race in particular. I think he got fourth out of it. I don't know who else was in it, but he's the only name I recognized. One thing I noticed really quickly that this is a family-friendly racetrack because there's no fucking beer stand. And of course, that's the first thing I wanted in looking for was the beer stand, but it was just hot dogs and T-shirts. So that was a bummer. So if you want to drink, you got to get out to the parking lot. And so that's what I did. I turned around, and fortunately, I was smart enough to pack a cooler. And the guys who parked right in front of me happened to also have the same idea. A couple of old-timers. Their names are Terry and Earl. The coolest fucking guys. I guess they've been going to Thunder Road for 30, 40 years, 50 years, something like that. Terry had raced up until a couple of years ago. He raced four cylinders up there, and his whole family has done it. I guess they're the first family to have 3 generations in the Milk Bowl, which is pretty cool. And just a really super nice guy. We stood around and talked shit about racing for about an hour, waiting for qualifying to wrap up. I mean, there's nothing really to watch in time trials at a racetrack like that. So we stood out in the parking lot and made friends, and I kind of folded into their group for the rest of the day. I must have looked crazy hanging out with these old dudes, long hair and a beard, just chilling. But they were kind enough to give me a Jim Beam honey nip out in the parking lot, which was very nice. I definitely sucked that down. They tried to give me weed too, but I had to drive like 3 hours after that, so I figured I might as well keep it within a reasonable boundary. Otherwise, I'd still be up there by that pond.
Yeah.
The modified race was pretty good. Definitely a single file affair. Kind of reminiscent of Martinsville or a lot of places where it's lower groove dominant. If you get stuck on the outside, it's a death sentence, and that's what happened to Ron Silk. He started up towards the front and dropped back to about 9th or 10th and eventually got wrecked by Luke Baldwin. Whether that was on purpose or not is up for debate, but it doesn't matter because it happened. That brought out your first caution of the day. Kyle Bonsignor, which is the cousin of several-time champion and Xfinity reject Justin Bonsignor, ended up picking up the win. Great battle between him and Jake Johnson. Jake the Jet, great nickname, by the way. He was on his ass the entire race and had a couple shots at it, but couldn't quite get there. There was a late caution where everyone came down and took tires, which gave Matt Hirschman the opportunity to move through the field. I think a lot of people figured it was a foregone conclusion he'd get there, but just kind of ran out of time. And I think there was another wreck with, maybe I'm mixing these up, but Austin Beers got around, which was a bummer. And Anthony Nocella, who was the team he drives for, the owner, had passed away recently. So there was a little bit of sadness when he got in the fence and had to climb out of the car, especially since how hard they worked, and they were pretty fast. But at the end of the day, it all didn't matter because Kyle Bonsignor picked up a win. I know he's a friends of the program, and I guess you could kind of call him an underdog, especially in the shadow of his much more famous cousin, Justin. But I had a good time. It's a beautiful racetrack, like I said. It's right in the middle of sort of vacation land up there. I guess that's more of a Maine term, but that's what it is in the White Mountains. There's a lot of campgrounds and fishing and lakes and just beautiful scenery to be a part of. And believe me, the wheels are turning on trying to plan a trip up there when they're running something big at White Mountain, like the American Canadian Tour or something like that. Definitely looking forward to going to that place. And it was awesome because they ran the feature at 2 o'clock, and because it was kind of a freight train race, it was done by about 3:30. So I was home at a very reasonable hour, which was perfect. Again, shout out to my homies, Earl and Terry. We had a real nice time. I don't know what it is about meeting 70-year-olds at the racetrack, but that always seems to be who I run into when I'm chilling.
Gravitate towards.
Yeah, just it's all the pawpaws that I end up making friends with, and these are some of the best. They, again, encouraged me to go to Thunder Road as soon as I have a chance and told me where they sat and all the tips and tricks to get there. And, it's only an extra 30 minutes up the road if you're on the highway anyway, so I think I might have to do that this year because Thunder Road, the Thursday night shows they have on Flow, I watch those pretty often, and it's great racing and a beautiful racetrack and a good excuse to camp for a night, I think. So I think I'm going to have to do that. But, yeah, great experience. White Mountain rules. Again, we have so many good short tracks in New England. I'm glad to have uncovered another one. And this is my 5th new racetrack on the old list for this year. So I'm pretty proud of that. And I think I got a couple more coming up. So, it's a little competition I have with myself. I think most people do that are race fans. Yeah. But the more new places I can go see, the better. And I'm just happy to scratch White Mountain off the list because that place rules.
Are you and Terry and Earl Facebook friends now?
I hadn't found him yet, but I'm going to. You better believe I'm going to find those guys. And I don't even know they know what Facebook is, to be honest with you.
Wow.
But good guys, and I know I'll see them at Thunder Road at some point in the next couple of years. There was a bunch of other racing going on this weekend. I watched a lot of dirt late models. Also, quick shout out to Buddy Pulley. He gave me shit a week or two ago about never talking about Southern late model racing on here. He's like, do I need to tell you what goes on so you can talk about it? And I was very forthcoming in saying, if I don't watch it, I don't talk about it. I don't watch the Cars Tour. So. Sorry about that, bub. If he does fill in for me while I'm gone to Europe, I guess that's probably all you hear about is the Cars Tour. But
if
anyway,
you are listening to the show and like the Cars Tour, though, go listen to Buddies.
Oh yeah, he does a way better job of describing that shit than I do all the late model stuff I talk about. There's no question about that. Dude is a professional and good kid for sure. But yes, buddy, that's why I don't talk about it is because I don't really watch it all that much. Because I don't like when they pull drivers out of the cars midway through the race to interview them during the pit break like they did in South Boston. Anyway, the world of outlaw late models, the late models I do like, or dirt late models, that is. It was a pretty good weekend of racing there. Nick Hoffman picked up a couple wins at River Cities in Norman County. As you all know, I'm a big Thrill from Mooresville Nick Hoffman fan, and he's creeped into Bobby Pierce's lead. It's down to 78 points in the point standings. So Nick Hoffman mounting a pretty serious charge for the championship. Also, this one's for you, Brian. Tim McCready picked up an exciting win at Nodak over Bobby.
Yep. I saw that. Didn't watch it, but I saw he won, so good. Hopefully get to see him win somewhere.
We all love to see this, and, I mean, the Boom Briggs group has really put together a nice piece for Timmy, and Tim McCready has really turned it up, too. I think there was a lot of speculation about how much longer he's going to be in the seat. He's a little older now. There's a lot of young talent coming up, and, he's so good at what he does, and he's got quite the resume. But, you hate to see old-timers flame out, and I think a lot of people were starting to write him off. But from what we've seen in the past few weeks out of him and the Boom Briggs team, that's definitely not the case. And T-Mac moves his way. I think he's in the top 5 in points now, so good for him. The Hell Tour rolls on. They were at Tri-City, which got rained out, so I guess they weren't really there. But apparently the Gundakers run that racetrack, and apparently they didn't open the pit gates until, very late, and a lot of teams were pissed about that. A little bit of drama on Facebook, which there was a shit ton of this week in the dirt late model world, which we'll get into in a couple minutes here. They did make it to Macon. This was definitely my race of the week. Trey Mills held off Brandon Shepard for an absolutely badass win. Something happened to Brandon. I can't remember exactly what it was, but he had to go change a tire and had to work his way from the back to get this win. Made it all the way to second, but Trey just rode that inside line, and Brandon just sent it in pretty much in the infield trying to get around him, but just couldn't make it happen. Trey Mills picking up a big win. He's 16 years old and looks like a sort of Christian claymation cartoon character with the glasses and all that. But he's a badass little race car driver, and you're going to hear a lot about Trey coming up here in the next few years. Jason Fager picked up wins at Farmer City and Highland, and that leads us to Clarksville. And I don't know if I mentioned this, we're talking about the Hell Tour right now. I think I did, but I just got so excited about Trey Mills winning, I forgot. And I'm very excited to talk about Clarksville as well, because this place, usually, if I'm watching this, I won't call it obscure, but to a lot of the fans here, it is obscure racing. And to y'all, it's kind of obscure racing, I assume. But I don't really talk about Hell Tour too much in our little group text. But as I was watching this race, I I had to chime in with what I was witnessing. Now, Clarksville's been around for a long time, and from what I gather, it's always been a little bit of a dump.
Where's this at?
Tennessee, Clarksville, Tennessee.
And
yep,
that's all you had to say.
Say no more, fam. But unfortunately, this racetrack is on the chopping block. The town of Clarksville is kind of moving in, and the plan is to take over the place within a couple years. I don't know if it's eminent domain or they're selling it. I don't really know what's going on, but you look at the place, and there's literally a subdivision on the other side of the wall from Turn 4. Which, when you look at the rest of the condition of the track, I don't know if I'd want a house on the other side of that. This place,
You sent us a couple screenshots from the TV, and whew.
fucking dump. And I hate talking shit about racetracks, and it's very sad that this place is closing, but it's very evident that it is closing. It was Weber Valley on live television. They were out there working the track during a caution and a heat race. They had this big old fucking tractor out there reworking 3 and 4, and you don't see that very often. And this guy I forget the owner's name, but he was out there just riding that fucker around all night. Of course, I was talking to my late model buddies down in Carolina. We talk about it on the show all the time. Kyle Armstrong was actually on the premises with the Simpson trailer. He didn't have much to say about it because he was busy working, but I did hear some stories about this from some of the other folks that have been there. The favorite come from my buddy James, who said, first one went there around 2000, half the announcer's booth had fallen over, and they never tried to fix it, and the grass was chest high in the infield. But just... this poor place is so worn out, and I mean, even if it was going to stay open, it needs they need to take that fucker to Shark Tank to get some money to fix it. They had cut the grass in the infield, or it was gone, and it had been replaced with 2 very, very tall dirt mounds, about 10 foot tall apiece, and there was a new mud lake pretty much stretching the entirety of 1 to 2. So, there's a couple of occurrences where cars got hooked together, and it took them literally 30 to 40 minutes to get them apart. I don't know if these 2 modifieds were stuck up on an infield tractor tire or what it was, but that was a math problem that just couldn't be solved. And there was plenty of racing happening on Sunday night, and I just chose to watch this because I was getting such a kick out of it. But rest in peace, Clarksville. Apparently this is the last time Hell Tour is ever going to roll through there, and I think they got about 6 more events left, so it's a damn shame to see a racetrack close, but yeah.
Sometimes you just gotta take them out behind the barn.
Yeah, it's time for that dog to get put down, I think.
Yeah.
As far as the point stand is concerned on the Hell Tour, Jason Fager's still on top of the board with Tyler Erb and Dylan McCallum right behind him. They'll be at Spoon River, LaSalle, Red Hill, Tri-State, Duck River, and Shady Hill coming up this week. Kind of getting down to the end of the line here for Hell Tour, but there's a good amount of events left. I think it runs through mid-July.
Like Spoon River or Duck River better?
Spoon River's badass. But yeah, I knew you would like that. You always love the track names. Speaking of cool names, Cedar Lake, the World of Outlaws were there. David Gravel picking up a prelim one night, and Carson Macedo getting a big win on Saturday night. Highlight was at Wheatland for 3 nights. Aaron Reitzel picked up a win on Wednesday. Rico Abreu contending his winning ways. I think it's his 6th or 7th win of the year. I think he's on top of the points now. And Tyler Courtney winning the big show. I'm sure he was excited to do that. USAC, and I can't believe I forgot to talk about this last week. They've been doing Thursday Night Thunder at IRP again, which is amazing. And this past Thursday, they had a heroes race, and the entry list for this thing was ridiculous. Davey Hamilton was out there, Sammy Swindell, Tony Stewart, Ryan Newman was in the mix, Ron Capps, just famous names. And they almost killed Sammy Swindell on lap 1. You guys see this shit?
Yeah, I literally turned it on as that was happening. Like, within 3 seconds of me turning it on, the wreck happened. I was like, Jesus Christ.
Fuck, that was bad. Yeah. Sammy and Ron Capps got into each other, and Sammy just kind of flipped on his side and had a classic Thursday Night Thunder wreck. I guess there's no other way to put that one. But
when they shortened the race after that, too, I think it was
10 laps.
20 laps? And yeah, they just cut it down to 10 laps.
There was a big midget feature after that, and Nathan Bird picking up the win there, of course, of the Bird lineage. Jonathan Bird, big-time supporter of racetracks in the Indianapolis area, the Speedrome and IRP, and that's one of his kids or grandkids or something like that. I can't remember. But the bird name's synonymous with racing in Indiana, and it was cool to see him pick up that win. Also, the Rich Vogler Classic, excuse me, happened at Winchester. Winchester's a badass high-banked racetrack. You got to have a large set to go out there and race that place. Cody Swanson, to no one's surprise, picked up the win. Justin Grant, Dakota Armstrong, Bobby Santos, and Ryan fucking Newman rounding out the top 5. I love Ryan Newman, man. That guy, since he left Cup, just kind of races anything and everything that's absolutely fucking dangerous. Like I said, it takes a big set to go out and race Winchester in a Silver Crown car, and it's pretty awesome to see Ryan Newman go out there and do it, especially against these big dogs that focus on that series, like Cody Swanson and Bobby Santos. Good stuff. That was a cool race to watch. Some sad news to announce here. We're obviously not breaking the news here, but Jim Weller Jr., along with his wife and their son and his wife, passed away in a plane crash over the weekend. If you recognize the Weller name, it's because they're synonymous with Sharon Speedway. Jim Sr., of course, owned the track for 20 years, and Jim himself won a bunch of races, 36 big block wins at Sharon, and a 2-time track champion. That's very, very sad news coming out of Sharon there, so thoughts and prayers to all them.
I saw one of those like overseas news articles about this, and it didn't say anything about racing. It was just like, big-time steel tycoon dies in a plane crash.
Jesus. Well, Jim was certainly more than that to the folks at Sharon, and this is, of course, all
I heard about it in the racing community. I was like, what?
What's the connection? Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, very sad. Of course, Ryan Blaney has a connection to that ownership group now. Him and Dave own the place now. But, yeah, very sad news. And additional sad news, at least for me anyway, but not quite as sad as Jim Weller passing away. The Wild West Shootout is moving from Vado back to Central Arizona, where it's historically been from. Of course, Vado is the only big-time short track in all of New Mexico, and they put on the Wild West Shootout as this huge late model and modified event that happens in January. It's legendary, and again, Vado's been doing it for I think 5 or 6 years, something like that, and they never really drew a lot of people out to the racetrack, which was kind of a bummer. And, I like to see these classic events where they belong, which is certainly Central Arizona in this respect. But definitely sucks to see Vado lose such a big event, even if it wasn't a big one for grandstands. It was awesome to see that track get showcased alongside the Chili Bowl and Flow every January. So that's a bummer, but I'll still watch it. Speaking of racetracks, having some hard luck here, but having cool ideas anyway. Tulsa Speedway, which is a little high-banked dirt track outside of Tulsa, Oklahoma, they had a badass little promotion where it was $25 a carload to get into the facility. Now, unfortunately, it rained the entire weekend and nobody got to do that. But I thought that was a great idea, just to pay by the car and bring everybody in.
Yeah.
I would be all over that. But speaking of good news in the sprint car world, FS1 is going to be airing the Joker's Jackpot from Eldora. Of course, it's a big high-limit race kind of leading into the King's Royal coming up here. And they're airing that live on FS1, which is interesting. I'm curious to see how that pans out. There's a reason why live dirt racing doesn't get featured on television a lot. It's because the shows are kind of amorphous and just move as they move. So I'm very curious to see how they handle this, if there's any sort of weather or red flag periods or just, High Limit's good at moving their shows along for sure. And I'm sure they're not going to be running a fucking X-Mod division or some bullshit along with this to keep the TV time. But hopefully that works out because that is huge for sprint car racing. There's no question about that. Did you guys see this wreck at Bowman Gray?
Oh, of course.
Well, wreck is not the right way to describe it. It was a classic Bowman Gray comedy sketch. There was a father and son team out there. One of them was a lap down, and I'm guessing he was trying to block the guy his son was racing for the lead with.
Yes.
But ended up wrecking his
girl.
It could have been his daughter. That might have been it.
Well, no, he was blocking. It was a girl leading.
Oh.
The father blocked the girl so that his son could get around her.
Well, wrecked the wrong car. I don't even really know how this went down, honestly. Was that the dad who came in and completely
It was
through the
father
people's
and
elbow?
son. It was father and son and father and daughter.
What was this? Zach? What's that family's name? I want to say Staley, but that's...
Hold on,
I think it is Staley.
I got to pull it up right here. Hang on.
Yeah, I just know that The one guy who did the elbow drop and pulled up the hood of the car, he got suspended for the rest of the season.
Zach Staley, yeah.
Yeah, his son got suspended for 3 races, and then the daughter who ended up, I guess she won. I think the dad won. The daughter got a 1 race suspension. So.
But yeah, I've seen somebody dive into a windshield before. That's, part and parcel for Bowman Gray. I've never seen anyone grab the hood with their bare hands and try and rip
that was
open like a fucking can of tuna.
That was insane.
That was embarrassing.
Yeah,
if I was that son and my dad has to block the leader for me to win a race, then I would be mortified for the rest of my life.
Yeah. Zach did issue a statement on Facebook about all of this, and he says, I want to apologize to all my fans, sponsors, and everyone at Bowman Gray for what went down this past Saturday night. I lost my cool. Yeah, that's the understatement of the fucking century. I take full responsibility for my actions that led to me getting suspended for the rest of the season.
Good.
And then he goes on and he talks about how, people tearing up his equipment, and he's reached a breaking point, and it is what it is. I don't know, but it was pretty fucking funny to watch. I've never heard Matthew Dillner so fired up on the mic. That was a legendary call from him, for sure. And not to be outdone by this, at Port Royal in a Crate Late model race, I don't know the guys' names, but there was a really long spin in 1 and 2. Somebody got taken out, and then this guy decided to drive all the way up the wrong side of the racetrack and use the guy who wrecked him as essentially an open trailer and just drove up the wedge in the front. And that was pretty funny. But yeah, once again, I understand being angry about shit like that happening on the racetrack. It is expensive to fix race cars. That is money out of these people's pockets. And, these aren't $1 million cup teams by any stretch. It comes out of someone's actual real life wallet and not an investment group or whatever it is. But I've never understood the logic in further destroying your equipment to make a point.
Yeah.
I guess you can't kick somebody's daughter's ass. I don't know, but I
guess.
Let's not let's not wreck each other like that.
There was an official that had one of those drivers pinned to the ground for a long time, and he's just screaming in his face inches away, and I was like, just kiss already. And he had him pinned in a sex position. There was so much going on in that video.
Yeah, electric content coming out of Bowman Gray. I actually had my Bowman Gray hat on at White Mountain, and somebody asked me, "You actually watch that shit?" And I was like, "Are you not a fan of comedy?" Because that's what I watch it for.
Yeah. And then the fact that they still open the gates and let all the fans come down there while the chaos is still going on, I was like, what are we doing?
Oh, God. I love it. Saturday nights on Flow Racing, folks, if you want to watch Bowman Gray. It's not always like this, but sometimes it is. And now on to our dart for the week. I buried this one in the septic tank because there's no other place for this to be. There was a post from Ricky Thornton Jr. Yesterday, and I'll just read it. Hate to start the week out like this, but I'm here to warn my fellow merchandise vendors not to sell items online or in person to Derek Fox, which he posted a screenshot of this guy's Facebook page. Apparently he's a big-time Bobby Pierce and Kyle Larson fan, which I don't understand. But anyway, he purchased and received several items at Lernerville and then made chargebacks against the transactions, claiming he didn't receive the items. When contacted to ask why he did that, he immediately blocked me and took away the channel of communication to be able to resolve this without making the information public. Small business owners know that it's extremely difficult to win chargebacks as the vendor, no matter how much evidence you can submit. It's literal theft, which it is. It's one thing to do it to one guy. Apparently, he did it to 11 other drivers. 11.
Wow.
Yeah, that's a surefire way to never go to the racetrack ever again. These guys get punchy, and that's a good reason to do it. So yeah, this is my dart for the week. I would say that I'd punish him, but I feel like that's going to come on his own here.
Yeah.
But yeah,
people are going to be looking for this baby blue Bobby Pierce matching husband and wife shirts.
But just to recap, this guy used his own credit card, his own whatever, with his name on it, to go rip off 11 out of probably 12 or 13 vendors. Every single one of them, probably, but at least most of them. and then as if these people don't talk to each other.
Right.
Using your own shit. Like, that is absolutely fucking insane. And I hope Ricky gets his hands on him. I don't know who the other guys are, but yeah, apparently he hit up everybody. So that's my dart for the week. Go fuck yourself. Don't do stuff like that.
Yep.
Maybe those were the shirts that Brian found at the thrift store. He's trying to get rid of the evidence.
Yeah, if you want them laundered and clean, you can go to Speedway Screens. No, that's not Brian. He didn't do that.
Yeah, I'm not a thief.
Yeah, which, by the way, that one of those Kyle Larson shirts you posted was a really cool Chili Bowl one that I actually have. But it was the black version. So, yeah, Brian's got a bunch of cool shit. I'm sure he'll talk about it in a little bit. We're almost done with the septic tank, and we can get into the video of the week here, which is fucking awesome. But lots of great racing happening over the next week. The BC39 at the dirt track at Indianapolis Motor Speedway is happening as we're recording this episode. One of the biggest midget shows of the year in memory of Brian Clausen. If you're anybody who's anybody in a midget, you're at this race. So I highly recommend watching that. They always put on a good show there at IMS. Lucas Oil is going to be at Atomic on July 4th in Muskegon County right after that. World of Outlaw late models are at Deer Creek. PA Speedway rolls on at Port Royal, Hagerstown, The Grove, and Path Valley. USAC's going to be at Lincoln Park, and the main reason I include this is because the event is called Sprint-tacular. I thought you might like that, Truelove.
I do like that.
And over on the asphalt side, Cars Tour is going to be at Caraway. See, buddy, I do talk about it. And the Smart Tour is also going to be at Caraway on Saturday night. Both of those shows, I'm sure, will roll off around midnight. So that's the short track septic tank. Go out and see some racing, fuckers. Let's flush this thing down and talk about some semi-trucks.
All right, so video of the week this week, I picked a Great American Truck Series race from Atlanta in 1980. I've always been a little bit fascinated by these racing big rigs, and I've never really seen more than a couple clips. So I've never watched a full race, and granted, this wasn't a full race. It was, kind of the highlights of it, which, in saying that, I definitely would not want to watch a full race of this because they did 250 miles with an average speed of, I think, probably like 100 miles an hour. So this probably took 3 hours to run this whole fucking thing.
Sure fucking did.
It was hosted, Ken Squire and Hal Needham. Hal Needham. Yes, Hal Needham, he did own a Cup Series team with Burt Reynolds and had Harry Gant as a driver, but probably more famously, especially at this time, he had just done Smokey and the Bandit, which, he talks about at the beginning of the show. That really kind of upped the public consciousness of truck drivers, and people started calling the cowboys of the road and that type of stuff. And probably the most notable thing about this introduction is his shirt. He's got this pink, button-up shirt on that's only half buttoned, and he's got chest hairs all out and two big gold chains, looking very comfortable at the racetrack.
Yeah, every single chest hair this man has is on display.
Mm-hmm. And then we also had Brock Yates, who was another pretty famous racing journalist of the time, and he compared this race to running the Kentucky Derby with elephants, which I would say is a fairly apt comparison. Mm-hmm. I couldn't tell you any of these drivers who they were. There was not a name I recognized through any of them. The pole was earned by Jim Bickle, who had a lap of 122 miles an hour, which even he said himself was not sustainable for the race.
Hang on one second, y'all. You keep talking. I got to run upstairs. I just heard a giant clap of thunder, and all my windows are open. So keep going. I'll be back in a minute.
Okay. They showed some of the trucks, in the opening of the race, and a lot of them just looked like they came off the road. Some of them obviously were pretty done up for the track, and had their lights out and all that stuff, and special paint schemes. But a lot of them looked like they could be run, right after the race, go back to hauling, and I feel like I've even heard him mention a couple of guys did that.
Yeah, I think one of the guys had to drive his home and get back to work.
Yep. They got the call of "Gentlemen, start your diesels," and there was a $69,000 purse. Nice. While I said I didn't know any of the drivers, I did find it interesting. There was multiple Virgils in this race. Virgil's not a name you see pop up that often, and there were a couple of them in this one. Right off the bat, when the race started, immediately just big cloud of black smoke from every truck.
Oh my God,
so they rolled some coal there that hurt visibility, I'm sure, for a couple laps. Ken Squire did his best. I mean, Ken's one of, if not the greatest, stock car announcer of all time, and he did his best to make this sound exciting, but it definitely was not very exciting racing. I mean, again, you have these big ass, 14,000-pound trucks that can do barely 100 miles an hour. There wasn't a whole lot of passing, but obviously the speed disparities between the trucks was all over the place. And, a couple of them were fast. A lot of them were just out there making laps. One thing that I thought was very interesting is they said tire companies completely disavowed big rig racing, and nobody would make them tires that were like racing specific. So a lot of these guys were like grinding down their tires, like grinding down the tread to keep the heat low, because they showed a clip. Not to say I hope for wrecks when watching races, but I did want to see at least one wreck just to see what that would have looked like. And they did show a clip of the year prior who the leader, I forget his name, but he had a right front blowout in one of the turns and crashed and almost flipped the truck. And, if you're not familiar with big rigs and how they're constructed, it's basically just a big steel frame. They got the cab. A lot of the motors either, especially back then, either they were cab over, so, the motor was completely underneath the cab itself, or, more traditional motor in front of the cab. But the truck almost disintegrated. It seemed like, the cab was pretty much off the frame and it almost flipped over. So while we didn't see a crash in the race itself, we did get to at least see what one would have looked like. Brock interviews a driver named Kenny Farmer, who he was the guy that wrecked last year. And they talked about that. There was a guy named Richard Craig who he had all sorts of cool shit painted all over his truck. While this was a pretty clear video, it also, it wasn't choppy or anything, but it was kind of fuzzy. So couldn't really see the paint schemes as well as I would have liked.
Yeah, there were a couple of tracking alerts that came up on the screen where the guy was clearly adjusting it while he was ripping. I'm back, by the way.
Yes.
It was soaking wet up there, so I'll deal with it later.
They show a clip of a driver named Mike Adams. A pit stop last year where I think the guy fueling up the truck fell over the back of the truck, and it was just pretty ridiculous. This guy had big ass sideburns. He said the truck that he won in last year, he drove it back home on retreaded tires, which I thought that was pretty crazy. This year he has a brand new truck that he said he moved the motor back to help with weight distribution and added 300 horsepower to the truck, but he said that's not enough. He could always have more. Some of the guys had up to 1,000 horsepower in their trucks. We see an interview. Also, I should mention again, this was a kind of the best of clips of the race. They said there were 5 blowouts and different cautions and stuff, so thankfully they didn't show any of that stuff. But there was a caution for a guy named Johnny Overload, which is that can't be his real name. His windshield blew out and almost knocked him out. Another guy chilling there with his fire suit wide open and chest hair out in the wind.
Amazing.
Back to the tires. They show guys in the pits wrestling with getting a tire back on a rim. And this is the clip of the tire companies, denouncing the tires and shaving rubber off the stock tires to keep them cooler. And Brock's like, they'll probably run as good as a racing tire, which I thought that was good to put faith in that. Then we see a guy who they said was a unique personality, a guy named John Murrow, the Doc, they called him. This big bearded ass motherfucker. Well, he's not a big guy, but he had just tons and tons of hair, just massive.
Not on top,
but the rest of his
else.
head. Yeah. let's see. Brock says you're not the prototype truck driver, but John says there's a lot more out there that look like me than there used to be, and he had a German Shepherd as his co-driver, at least on the highway. Thankfully, the dog did not enter the race with him.
Yeah, that was a funny little exchange. It's like, does he drive? And he's like, no, he doesn't know how to drive. It's like very matter of fact.
Towards the end, we get one more caution for Charlie Baker, who was out leading the race. All the tread blew off the tire and completely pulled the fender off the truck, and then the tire itself blew up as he was going in the pits. There's a random clip with a trucker, just like they're riding down the highway with this trucker and talking about racing. I don't know what the hell that was all about.
That was a cool clip, though, because he was like in his normal big rig and like hauling his racing truck and hauling a camper top that I guess he lives in on the road too. So it's quite the setup.
And then the end came. Mike Adams won his second race, which I failed to mention when Mike was talking about his truck. He was showing off his window net, which was basically made out of string. Yeah. He's like, I gotta keep your arm in there. And then his another one of the all-time lack of energy victory lane interviews of all time, just got out and he's like, I just did what I could, and he won the race again. So
that truck barely fit in victory lane.
Yeah. I can see why this racing didn't necessarily last forever. I mean, this series ran up until late 90s, early 2000s, I want to say, something like that.
79 to 93.
There, 93. And they even ran on dirt. I actually found a shirt. I haven't gotten it yet, but I plan on getting it. A shirt from the 1988 tour, and they actually went to my home track, Lebanon Valley. So they raced these things on dirt, too, which is pretty fucking crazy. But yeah, interesting. I'm glad I watched this. I can't say I'm going to dive too much into big rig racing from here on out, but it was interesting. I think a lot of the stuff that was off the track was more interesting than what was on the track. But what did you guys think?
Like you said, I've never seen such a long video of one of these races. I've seen the clips before, but this is kind of I don't know if I call it lost because this content's out here, but there's not a lot out there that documents this particular series and this particular style of racing, and it was cool to kind of get to know some of the people. And I mean, any footage of old Atlanta back in the early 80s when they were still running kart there is cool as shit. I can't imagine seeing this today, but I would kind of like to revive this series if we could. I mean, they still do big rig racing in Europe.
Yeah.
They still do it here. There's a series called American Big Rig Series that is running 7 dates this year all around the country. So
no kidding.
Interesting. I'm sure the trucks now are a lot more capable and hopefully have tires that are actually meant for racing at this point.
8 Swift trucks out there.
This weekend they're running Northeast PA at Lake Erie Speedway.
Oh shit!
Damn, what day? I could go to that. That's only like an hour away from me.
I think it's the 5th. I don't know. Look up American Big Rig Series.
Yeah, that's if it was Sunday, I'd be into it. But that's Saturdays. That's a big flea market day for me. So I don't know if I'll be down to make that drive. But that's interesting.
Yeah, I mean, for me, this is very visually appealing. But yeah, the racing wasn't that great. My boyfriend is obsessed with old trucker culture, so he's always digging up cool old clips and stuff and showing it to me. But I was really hoping, this race was 1980, I was really hoping when you told us last week what the race was that Lisa Worley was going to be in this race, but she was the winner of the 1979 race at Atlanta. But I'm sure a lot of listeners already know who she is, but she was a truck driver for like 40 years. She went by Yo-Yo. She was an absolute badass. She passed away last month from her battle with MS, but there's a great feature on her, this show from the 70s called Real People, so I recommend looking her up.
Yeah, I think they put some clips of that on the Truck Stop Chic Instagram, if I remember correctly.
And speaking of women truck drivers, this series also is where Shauna Robinson got her start.
Really?
Yeah. Yeah, before she got into NASCAR, she was doing this. I've even seen T-shirts of the truck. I haven't had a chance to grab one, but yeah, they're out there. She was in here, not in this race, obviously, but later in the 80s, she raced it. Cool. So, for next week, video of the week, kept it fairly short because I know Truelove's got another big travel weekend. But we're continuing with the trucks, not big rigs though. So NASCAR is at Sonoma next week, and I found a clip from a 1990 SCCA truck race. Now these are little trucks. These are, Rangers and Toyotas and that type of stuff. So there'll be some actual racing in this clip. So that's already on the playlist.
Oh, yeah.
And the other video. So do you guys watch much, or do you guys catch any like food reviewer stuff? Like watch any of that type of shit? Okay, so probably one of the guys that really popularized this stupid trend is a guy named Dame Drops. And I found a video that he did with Bubba Wallace about 7 years ago. Just NASCAR food review, Dame Drops and Bubba Wallace. So I don't know how bad this will be, but it's something different. And throw that on the playlist.
We've had a couple of good ones back to back, so we got to bring it back down to earth at some point.
Well, again, it's no stop motion, so I feel like there will be some entertainment value to this, but just something different. So those are your videos of the week, and Truelove will be in Chicago this weekend. There's a very slim chance I go to the IndyCar race Sunday. Probably not, although I got to look and see. We didn't mention it, but what the hell is his name?
Oh, yeah, Felix Rosenquist, yeah.
Felix Rosenquist is running a Black Sabbath scheme because this is the weekend of Black Sabbath is playing their final show in England this weekend. Yes. So I kind of want to go up and if there's merch, I want to stock up on those to flip at a later date. So that might get me to IndyCar on Sunday.
They've played their final show about 72 times, but
yeah, but this is like the last one. Ozzy's like on his last leg, so yeah, he's done. So this will be it. So yeah, Rob, are you doing any racing stuff this weekend?
I might be going to Stafford on Thursday night for the big wheel race. That's the headliner is the kids' big wheel race, but it's a normal SK show and fireworks, of course, leading into the 4th. We'll see if I end up doing that, but my wife's out of town. I got nothing else to do. I'm probably going to haul down to Stafford, so if anyone's out there, come say what's up to me.
Cool, and as always, you can follow us on Instagram at meetmeatapplebees, on Twitter at meetmeatapplebees. I'm Speedway Screens on all the things. SpeedwayTSJ.etsy.com is where you can get those sprint car shirts Rob mentioned.
Yes, all MMA. Legit.
Yep. MMA Applebee's at checkout for 15% off, and I know we mentioned the BC 39 is tonight and tomorrow. There will be a very special Brian Clausen drop tomorrow. If you're a size large, usually around 5 or 6, I post that stuff. So as you're listening to this, check the store out.
You can follow me at
How do you spell that?
Just a bunch of E's. Oh, yeah. Still Snake Mountain _Truelove. I'll try to post stuff from Chicago this weekend as it's happening, but gotta save phone battery, and I don't know what service will be like, so.
That's true.
Well, you are in a real city, so I have to imagine you'll have service.
Hoping it'll be a little better than what it was this past weekend.
Yeah, you would hope. Very excited to hear about your trip out there. I haven't gone to Chicago in a long time. Definitely not for a race. Rob Motes _unofficial Instagram. Sorry, I cut you off there. What were you saying?
You're fine. I was just gonna say I think this is gonna be like unlike anything I've ever experienced. I was looking at like the schedule earlier for this weekend, and even like the fan experience stuff. It really looks like they're going above and beyond. So
yeah,
I'm excited.
Well, it seems like it's the last time it's gonna happen. So I'm glad you are getting a shot at it.
Yep.
Rob Motes _unofficial on Instagram. My band's called These Wild Plains. Like I said, I'll be at Stafford most likely on Thursday night. And if I happen to come across anything else over the weekend, I'll probably swing through. But I'm pretty sure that's the only thing I'm going to have a shot at checking out. So, come say hi at Stafford. And, that's pretty much the deal. Just getting ready to go to Europe pretty soon. And very much looking forward to that. Trying to figure out how the fuck I'm going to do this show and also watch racing while I'm out there. So I guess we'll see how it goes. But you guys will figure it out. So
We'll figure it out.
Cool. And with that, looks like check is here. So thanks for joining us again at Applebee's, and we'll talk to y'all next week.